ago, but I wanted to start over because I felt like, I don't know, I was in the middle of eating a banana and I just really needed to get my thoughts together. But I got a download last night and I wrote it down in my phone. It is regarding Adam and Eve and how when in scripture God creates Eve, he takes a rib from Adam to do so. So in my notes, this is verbatim what I wrote. I use this phone because I have that red cast on it. That way it doesn't disrupt my sleep pattern. Hey girl, I had a download last night, so I thought I would jump on and talk about it instead of making a reel. I'm in the middle of making that bone broth and I just thought this would be easier. So we're talking about the creation of Eve from Adam's rib. Because that's the download I got last night. This is what my actual note said. It says, rib from Adam, sameness in relationships instead of differences. As in, that's what you're supposed to be focusing on. I've gotten this message before, but I haven't gotten it in quite this way. It's not a sex war, but a courtship equanimity. People get focused on verses and differences with men and women. And that was what this message was really talking about, was the differences, okay? So, what are ribs? I was thinking about this as on terms of a body worker, right? Because I'm into fitness and physical therapy and massage therapy and meridians, energy centers, chakras. So my mind's going like this while I'm cooking. When it comes to our ribs and what emotions are stored there, it's grief. When we feel our ribs, where there's pain, it's stored grief, all right? So that, puts me in the mind of Adam and Eve's rib sharing is humans' first trauma bond. That's how it works for that. But it's intended to be fairly equal. We use this in terms of when we're getting married. Like, everybody wants to quote from this, rib removal, to prove that women are meant to be equal with men and not underfoot. Otherwise, he would have used a foot bone. That's a term that a lot of people say. So, but why is that? What is this? Let's unpack this some more and talk about bodywork functions of ribs and spiritual meaning inside ribs. So this is a very helpful quote that I found. I'm going to make the text a little bit bigger because I don't like the way I look with my glasses on in film. And I'm kind of blind. It says, okay, so ribs, I'm reading this from flowsandforms.com in their ribs section. This is, talking about energy centers and Chinese medicine types of things like this. So it says the ribs that are the long curved bones that surround the chest, thorax, and whose upper extremities are attached to their vertebrae. Their function, like that of the sternum and shoulder blades, is to protect the area around the heart or lungs. The heart region stands for emotions, and the lungs area represents the relationship with the outside. So already we have a relationship between man and woman, and that which protects from the outside. So this is an internal thing that protects, let's say, the relationship from the outside. Fractures on the ribs, which are bones, indicate that the person has experienced undervaluing, but that by breaking them also felt a sense of relief in the immense tension he was going through. This undervaluing feeling was felt in the bones that protect the thoracic cavity. This means, in this particular case, the person felt attacked by someone in his emotions, and the person feels that someone is not allowing him to feel his feelings. Normally, the person or thing against whom or which the physical shock that led to the fracturing of the ribs that took place has little to do with the life of the individual. That person, a third party, is a mere vehicle that makes that makes perceptible the tension that the person was feeling. This is the reason why it becomes necessary to ascertain if that third person has anything in common with someone who is part of the life of the injured person, or if he matches as any model of a person who forms part of the nucleus the injured person belongs to. In principle, this is kind of boiling it down. In principle, the ribs on the right are the yang. That's the right. The ribs on the right are the masculine, the yang, and those on the left side are the yin. This applies to both left and right and left-handed people. This polarity is not at all obvious, for which reason it must be handled with care. A lesion in the yang ribs denotes a feeling of being attacked or aggression by a man, and if it happens on the yin side, by a woman. So this is a lot to unpack. So we're talking about grief and a sense of being undervalued here when it comes to injuries and things that are impacting the ribs in a negative way. So by undervaluing the differences between man and women, by not honoring the sameness, we are causing injury and undervaluing each other. And therefore, do you know how many people have back issues and issues breathing deep for diaphragmatic breaths? Do you know how important this whole relationship with masculine feminine energy is to the very breath of life itself? God, in the scripture, gave Adam breath. And then he gave Adam's rib to Eve, which is the protector of the breath and of the heart and of the emotions. So beautiful. Like, now, this is going a whole different way than I was taught in church, right? So, that being said, it is my deep impression that Spirit was telling me that the battle of the sexes is null and void. It is something that no longer needs to be in our interactions. It's no longer needed to be in our programming. We are only doing injury to ourselves, to our heart chakras, by concentrating negatively on the differences. Why can't it be art? Why can't we appreciate what it is, who we are, how it comes through, and the fact that it's not the same always, but there's fundamental things that are the same. For instance, the Bible doesn't say if the rib was removed from the left hand or the right hand side. It just says a rib. So I'm curious if there's ever a way to translate scripture to get more exact on that. I just did a preliminary sweep through the eyes of a body worker perspective. But when it comes to how to protect this nucleus, the rib is more allegorical, more important, more metaphorical than we could ever have imagined, other than just that equanimity. This is more than that. This is not just equanimity. This is taking a trauma bond and making something that is protected from it. And there's so much emotional unpacking to this, and I don't know if I have the words for it, but hello, Eliza. I'm going to recap for you what I'm talking about. I had a message. I was half in, half out of sleep. And I turned over in bed, and I had to write down a note about what I was receiving, and I'm just talking about it. And I did a little bit of research from a body mechanics perspective and a Chinese medicine perspective. I'm talking about the rib that was removed from Adam during the creation of Eve in the book of Genesis. So I've gotten a message in the past where the message was about concentrating on sameness between the sexes, but it's not been quite like this. I feel like this sameness is already in the collective. That's why we have... I'm talking about sexes and polarity. Now, this is why I feel like when we're talking about gender expression, that's why things are the way they are, where things are so fluid. And I know this is kind of rare as far as humans are concerned in the long run construction of humanity, to be so fluid in the outside, from the outside in perspective. I feel like this is what the reason for all of that outward expression of gender is about. It's the fact that we have concentrated negatively on the differences so much that the sameness is being overcompensated for. Right? I have this isn't from me. This isn't from me, Eliza. I swear to God. This came to me in the dark when I was half asleep, and if I hadn't wrote it down, this would have been lost forever. So this was a receiving mode thing. And I think this came from the fact that I quit taking melatonin at night, to be honest, because it's been a long time since I had such a clear message that had so many nuances. So this was from somewhere else. I'm just translating. I had to say it, not just for you, because you know me, but anybody else who watches this needed to know that. I just make an intention every day to be in the receptive mode and to be able to use this mercurial voice that I have to do my job. So when it comes to the gender expressions, that's why we see boys wearing nail polish more than usual, and they're not expressing as trans. They're just regular. That's why we're seeing a blend of masculine and feminine in literally every facet of life in gender. But I feel like it has to boil down to this creation aspect where, yes, it is intended to be a equanimity set where the rib came from somewhere that wasn't anywhere lower on Adam's body, but it's so much more nuanced than that. We're talking about feelings of grief and not being valued are tied up in this rib thing. There's scripture that goes along with this, and I don't have like the Bible in front of me, but I know for a fact it was giving instructions on masculinity and femininity and roles in Genesis. And there's also verses about this later on down the road, New Testament as well. But I don't want to go into the brass tacks of that. My intention is to just call the attention back to the original point that I feel like I got a download about, which was undervaluing is such a dangerous thing that we do to each other on a regular basis, daily. We do this thing where we're constantly tearing each other apart, but we have more similarities than differences as far as males and females go. There's a difference between patriarchy and masculinity. There's a difference between feminism and femininity. And I feel like we get really lost in the weeds, but part of why that is because we're always trying to shake it apart and piece it apart and differentiate, and we're already different enough, but celebrating it instead of dogging it and making it something bad that we're not the same identical functions in life. Like, appreciate the nuances a little bit more, and we're likely to have a lot less heart attacks, a lot less if our ribs are being attacked that protect this breath mechanism, our connection with God, our connection with other people, and our connection with our own bodies is going to be broken. So I have to go check my soup. My intention is to make this bone broth until the bones start getting a little soft. Then it's going to turn into a lentil soup, which I haven't made in a while. I've had a couple days to be able to plan this and set it up, and nothing makes me happier than to be able to spend the day in the kitchen sometimes. Like, if I had my way and I didn't have to work, I would be cooking 3 meals a day. I would love to have somebody doing my dishes, though. Like, I don't like doing both. But anyway, the battle of the sexes is over. It always was. I'm not saying anything new. But I thought I would share that earth-shaking perspective change. I can't imagine hating cooking. My Mars and Taurus likes to build things. I'm obsessed with food, and I like controlling it. Because I'm Mars opposite Pluto, so I like being in control of the nitty-gritty of how the food turns out. But anyway, I love you. Thank you for listening to my... And I hope it made sense. Oh yeah, Saturn and Taurus, there you go. You have better things to do. You have better things to build with Saturn and Taurus. That's for sure. I don't remember if you have any Scorpio, but I haven't seen your whole chart. I've only seen little clips of it, but I remember what you tell me. So, I'm gonna jet. I appreciate you. I appreciate whoever watches this later on. I'm gonna try to keep it short because I know the whole planet doesn't have an attention span anymore because TikTok ruined it. Anyway. No personal planets in Scorpio. What's Neptune, though? Your Neptune's in Scorpio? Okay, yeah, it is. Okay. Well, now I need to know about your 8th house. But we can finish this in comments if you feel like DMing me the answer. I would love to know. All right, I love you. Again, bye for now. And hopefully this gave you something to digest. And if this tickled your brain, let me know in the comments. How come I never hit the button right?